Hey, Mike here with Canadian Musician. Right now at the CBC Season Preview Day happening at CBC headquarters in downtown Toronto. Of course, one of the big announcements for CARAS and CBC Music this year is that the JUNO Awards are returning to the CBC for the next 6 years after spending about a decade and a half on CTV. And so, of course, major announcement. And with me here to talk about it is Allan Reid, president of CARAS and the JUNO Awards, as well as Mark Steinmetz, director of CBC Music. Guys, I know it's a busy day and a lot of people are waiting to talk to you. Thank you for this.
Oh, thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. And so I guess the obvious place to start, like I said, is the new announcement. I guess, Allan, from your perspective, first of all, after I think it was 16 years on CTV, at this point in time, what made sense about jumping over to the public broadcaster, or at least I believe returning to the public broadcaster, eh?
You know, there was a moment last summer, actually, when the Tragically Hip show happened, and I was actually on vacation in BC, and I sent Mark a note after seeing it. And I worked with the Hip for years when I was at Universal Music, and as a Canadian, I was so proud of what our public broadcaster created, this incredible national moment that filled so many Canadians with pride, you know, over 11 million viewers watching that. And Mark and I just sort of reached out to say this was so amazing, and we got together a little while after, and he presented this concept, which was more than just an award show. It was CBC wants to wrap themselves around the Junos and everything that CARAS does, from music counts, our education side, right through to the Hall of Fame. And that was music to our ears. We were so excited to, you know, work with CBC on this concept of how do we bring all music to all people in this country. So very excited to make it happen now.
Mark, Allan said a little bit about it there, but from your guys' perspective, what made sense about the Junos and, like Allan was saying, everything else CARAS does, and a bit more about that sales pitch?
Sure. No, well, the fact of the matter is that CBC Music does a lot of, well, we showcase emerging talent all year. We double down on Canadian talent all year. We're cross-platform. We make sure that all genres of music are, reflected. You know, not all of them necessarily on each platform, but we tend to hit everything. And so every year I'd go to wherever the Junos were across the country, and I'd sit there and I'd watch this amazing show, this great celebration of Canadian music, but it's not on our platforms. And it, you know, I got ambitious, and I said, you know, it should be here. This is the home, the true home of it. And, you know, I think the timing was right. Back last fall, we proved it with the Hip special, and so we had chats, and the 365-day-a-year look is exactly what we want to do. It's not just about the award show. The award show is amazing, produced by Insight, and a fantastic show, but we want to make sure we bring more audience to it, we bring more interest to it, and showcase as much all year leading up to it as can. Maybe bring some more audience to it.
Yeah, the truth is, too, our mandates are perfectly aligned.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really what sort of struck me when Mark and I sat down was, you know, our goal is to help promote and celebrate Canadian talent.
Yes.
And again, we have 41 categories that does that. Mm-hmm. And to work with a broadcaster that can help us expose far greater jazz, classical, indigenous, children's, francophone, like so many of our categories, that's really exciting.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, and when the nominees are, you know, I guess it's February when the nominees are released, there's weeks, there's months to leading up to the award show where we can actually do more to lift those nominees up, and that's really what we'd like to do. And then all the assets that CARAS does, whether it's the Hall of Fame or music counts, all those things, we want to make sure we're partnering with them and elevating those things throughout the year. Yeah.
How it will be integrated, aside from, because like you were saying, you want this to be more than just the award show and, you know, coverage during Juno week. It's a 365 vision that you guys got for it going forward. Like you said, CBC is well set up for this, especially with the expansion of CBC Music and your various platforms, the festival, all your digital outlets you have now. How do you guys plan to work together outside of that week of Juno week? Is there a clear idea. I don't know how much you're at liberty to say so you say yet, but
well, first of all, yeah, we're just starting the conversations about all the options, right? So our creative teams are getting together, discussing what's possible. So yeah, we don't have any concrete things. We've got notions, but one of the things we've been doing over the last couple of years is a project called the Great Canadian Music Class Challenge, which we're in partnership with Music Counts prior to this. So we want to make sure that we expand that. We sort of double down on that educational component of what we do. I think music education in this country is huge. There's a huge opportunity there. Not that we're going to go into schools necessarily and teach, but we're going to do some initiatives that engage Canadians. That's what this is all about, engaging people and learning more about our artists across the country. This challenge, this getting classrooms involved, is just one of those things that we want to do.
Yeah, and that's, it's interesting. It's a huge challenge in the sense that, music education shouldn't even rely on a charity in the first place. Right. But unfortunately, our school systems have to make difficult decisions, and music education has been in constant decline over the last 20 years. And that does not sit well to, for CARAS as an organization that represents musicians, but also it's important that we're just building better human beings. Mm-hmm. And, the leaders of this country, music education is vital to providing a full spectrum of education, and so to work with the CBC on that, and again, something that they value that heavily as we do, and importance to culture all around. Yes. So yeah, it's that's one way that we're going to work together, but there'll be many more.
Absolutely. And I'm interested. I know, like we're talking about, it's a full year thing now, but to talk about specifically the award show, it's nothing original to say that in this day and age, appointment viewing in a lot of ways has gone out the door, and people are kind of watching what they want, how they want, and in a lot of ways, kind of people's consumption of something like an award show is broken up. They're watching the individual speeches and performances and everything like that the next day on their phones or wherever they are. Does that change the way that you guys approach something like an award show in this day and age? And do you care that people aren't maybe watching it from start to finish, as long as they're going to a CBC platform to watch what they do watch?
Well, I'll jump in first. I actually disagree. I think that award shows and sporting events are must-see television. There is an opportunity that is engaging as a viewer, knowing that this is happening live, and that I'm watching this, and people across the country are all rooting for their favorite artists, and you're engaged with each other while you're watching it. And what's exciting for us, again, is the platforms that we can now expand that over with CBC on. And so, yeah, there's no question people will take the favorite moments, and we'll dice those up and use them for different platforms to play back. But I think that Canadians, they want to know who is winning awards, and they want to see that moment. They want to see it live.
Yes.
If I could add one thing, and that is, I totally agree with Allan. The issue today is with the amount of content that's out there, just to drop an award show one night and with some promotional, 30 seconds, promotion leading up to the thing, that's not enough in my mind. I think what you need to do is this approach we were talking about earlier, is where you're actually engaging Canadians in the lead up through stories, through different content, that people start learning about the nominees. That might leverage more audience to come to be engaged with each other. So that's sort of what we're trying to do.
And there's Allan, there's something I've been wanting to ask you about. Maybe a bit of a touchy subject, but I haven't seen you since it happened. It's back in February when the nominees were announced. And Mark, like you said, it's part of the CBC's mandate, of course, to ensure that all genres and people across the country are represented in the coverage. And that seems obvious, but you might already guess. Just when the nominees were announced, Tegan and Sarah had put out that statement saying, of course, they were honored for the nominations. But I won't even know so much a criticism of the Junos itself, but looking at the Junos as nominees as a symptom of a larger thing in society, essentially saying there was a lack of gender diversity within the nominations. Maybe you have commented on this, I just haven't seen it, but since then I've just been curious to see how that was, understood and how you reacted to that and your folks at CARAS reacted to that.
Yeah, and I had a great chat with Tegan and Sarah after that as well, and Amy Milan last year when this point came up. You're right, CARAS is a reflection of what happens in the music industry, and we don't pick the nominees, the industry does, and our judges do. And we don't pick the winners either. But I think the issue that Tegan and Sarah really drove down into was more about the technical awards when you look at producers, engineers, and video directors. And it's true. Like when we looked at the stats, 118 submissions in the Producer of the Year category, and only 8 were submitted by women. And that doesn't get you a nomination. There's no gender diversity in who actually, we don't go through and nor do our members go, well, we need more women here and we need more of this or that. They pick what they believe are the best artists that should reflect in that category. So the symptomatic problem is, why are women not entering those lines of work? And it was interesting, we reached out to a number of the schools across the country that do audio engineering, and Nimbus, actually one in Vancouver that Garth Richardson runs. And I talked to Mike Schroeder there, who's one of their heads of programming. And what they've been doing is they've now been getting in touch with a lot of the local schools, going to career days and educating kids in high school, and especially young girls, saying, you know, there's an opportunity here, and these jobs exist. You maybe never thought about becoming a recording engineer, but if you're in music class and you love music, and maybe this is an area you might be interested in getting into, they've now seen their enrollment go from what was 5%, 5 years of women enrolling in those categories, to now 20%. So I think there's, you know, it's not something that just happens overnight. There needs to be a shift. I think that, you know, certainly CARAS is more than supportive of seeing more women and more diversity all around in categories. That's something that we believe in heavily. I think we showcase this year in our broadcast. But I think it's still, it requires women to wanting to get engaged, and I think that's up to the industry to letting them know these kind of careers even exist.
And I know we have to wrap up here in a second. I'm getting the signal, but there's one thing I want to ask you both about, because I think you're in interesting positions to provide it, and it's, again, not directly related to the Juno announcement today and that, but it's, Mark, in your position as Director of CBC Music, you're seeing the best of Canadian talent from across the country. Of course, you are as well at the Junos, and especially in your previous life as working in A&R with Universal. You guys have seen people move from, you know, baby artists, just emerging artists, to become big stars. So I'm wondering, what separates, have you been able to identify, or can you identify, or how do you identify what separates merely a very good performer, songwriter, musician from those who become something bigger and become something special?
I think it's pretty simple. It's great songs. And that is, as a former A&R guy, that was my mantra in signing artists at Universal. Was there's a lot of amazing voices out there, but if you don't have great songs, ultimately it's music. That's what we're creating, and it has to not be good. It has to be great. It is so competitive in this worldwide space now. It's no longer just about, are you good in Canada? It's, are you great on a world scale? And with that then comes, to me, the next important part is there a unique voice delivering that message? Do I identify with what that person is singing about, and does their vocals have an emotional impact on me? And then it's then it's obviously, are the players all proficient? Can we, create great music? And then there's that intangible it quality. Is the person a star? Do they make me feel something? And will they make me sort of pull me into their fandom? So again, it's simple to say. It's extremely difficult to do.
I would only add, because I agree completely with what Allan said, and I don't want to bore you, but I think there's also genres of music that have limited mass appeal, but have very deep, meaningful. The music itself, it just touches people in a way that isn't on a wide scale, that deserve to be heard. And for me, that's really important. And I think that's what CBC can bring ultimately to this, as well as, of course, reflecting the great songs of the country. So.
Well, guys, I know other people are waiting to talk to you both, but thank you very much, first of all, for doing this on this busy day. And I'm absolutely pleasure to see you both again, and good luck. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you two do together in the coming 6 years.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thanks.